Well, thank you very much. It is a great honor to be here with leaders in publishing who are thinking hard about the question that's been the defining theme of my professional life for the past decade, which is how do we produce great editorial content and have that sustained with a great long-term business model. That's what I've been doing since I left the Washington Post to start Politico it was about 9 years ago. Then the fall of 2006 was when we got going. I'm flattered that somebody would be interested in my view and regard me as a sort of new media entrepreneur. I am reminded of a story about John F. Kennedy. And of course, he was in World War II. His boat was hit, PT-109, and he was rescued his crew. And years later, as he's running for president, they said, "Tell us the story of how you became a war hero." He said, "It was involuntary. They sunk my boat." And I should tell you, that's true with respect to me and what I've been doing in media. It was truly involuntary. They sunk my boat. If the challenge of evolution and coming up with new business models wasn't with us, I would have been perfectly happy in the old order. I was 21 years old. I went to work at the Washington Post. That was my absolute dream job. It was the paper of Woodward and Bernstein and the great editor Ben Bradley, terrific publishing family, the Graham family. And I was perfectly comfortable in what I call the old order of media. And I was doing pretty well at it, actually. I had gone through a succession of reporting jobs, and then at one point, as I reached mid-career, it seemed that I should grow up and become an editor. So I was getting very near the top of the ladder, and then the damn ladder crumbled on me, just my luck. We looked around at what was happening in U.S. media, a group of us who later went on to found Politico, and we realized that having a backward-looking orientation to our careers, that's no way to live. And that if we believed in journalism, which we did, we had to concern ourselves with the question of what's next for the business. My co-founder is up there, Jim Vandehei. He's now the CEO. I'm the editor-in-chief of Politico. By the way, don't cling too much to these slides. The truth is I'm kind of a word person, but I knew I was speaking to all these magazine people, and my assistant said, these are magazine people. They love graphics. They love pictures. You got to have something visual. And so anyway, I gave you something visual, but let's see where it goes. Whoops, that didn't do it. I'll click along these, but you're going to find them very loosely organized to my remarks. What's next for media was the question that preoccupied us a decade ago, and it still preoccupies us now as Politico has gone from a local brand in Washington, D.C. to, as he very generously said, now we have aspirations to becoming a global brand and are well underway with our partner, Axel Springer, to achieving that. Let me go back to the beginning, though, in terms of what we believed then, because it's very important to what we believe now. Many of our assumptions have been reshuffled. Some of them have been discarded. Some new assumptions about our business we never dreamed of then. But there were a couple of core ideas that I think do have continuity. There were a couple of things that we believed, and we have clung to those beliefs. And they're relevant in the current publishing context. I would say not everybody is going to agree with these ideas, but they've worked for us. We believed that there was a more robust future, more robust editorial future, more robust business future, and there was a way to tie those two visions together with a niche model of media rather than a mass general interest model. I grew up professionally at one of the world's great general interest newspapers. The Washington Post was great at politics. That's why I wanted to work there as a young man, but they also covered the Washington Redskins. They also covered foreign news. They covered movies and movie reviews. They had comics. In other words, it was a classic general interest major metropolitan newspaper. It seemed to me, in the context of a decade ago, that model was failing. There was not a business model that would sustain the kind of editorial ambition that I wanted in any newsroom that I wanted to lead. So we went to a niche model. You cannot come to Politico and read a word about the Washington Redskins. You can't find out what's going on in Hollywood. None of that. We aimed to be good at two things: national politics and the creation of policy. And that's all we did. That's still basically all we do. We've been able to grow and scale that model, but we've done so sticking with that niche model. That's where we placed our chips on the casino table. Now, I would note that there's some really interesting innovations going on by people who have placed their chips in a different place. I think we'll hear from two of them next. We've got Huffington Post, effort to create a digital platform that is general interest. BuzzFeed, same. I can't say who's right. I can only say what's working for us. The two models I see out there in journalism, one is based on mass. There are things that you can do by being creative in audience engagement and using social media effectively that do create mass circulation models. Of course, the big challenge, still pretty unanswered to my mind, is how do you monetize that mass? A digital a web ad is about 10% of the traditional print ad. As that goes to mobile, some fraction of a web ad is going to mobile. So audiences bigger than ever, rates of monetization more modest than ever. What our proposition is, what we're trying to do, is not build mass, we're trying to build intimacy with our audience. In other words, we're trying to be indispensable to that group by being so good at what we do, politics and policy, and doing it in so many different formats, so many different venues, and so many different styles of journalism that we can capture a premium. That, to me, is the whole game in publishing these days, is how do you capture a premium for your work? There's only two ways that I know of doing it. One is by producing content that is so valuable that somebody's going to pay a lot, not the standard rate, but a large premium above the standard rate to advertise against that content. That's what we do with our digital publications. We still have a modest print presence, does well for us. As long as it continues to do well for us, we'll stick with it. If the lines ever cross and that the costs are greater than the revenue, we'll abandon it. For now, we have it happily, and it's important to our branding, both in the United States and in Europe. Morning newsletters, primarily how we reach people on their digital devices. In every instance, we're trying to capture a premium on the advertising in all those products. And the other way to capture a premium is, of course, through subscription dollars. The subscription model we have is different than many traditional magazines, and it's certainly different than the traditional newspaper paywall, where you hit 10 views a month and say, okay, whatever, I'll pull out the credit card and pay $14, $15 a month. Our subscription model is aimed, again, I go back to this idea of intimacy, that there are certain people in our audience who depend on our content it's so important to their personal and professional success that they're willing to pay a lot for it. This is the model that we call Politico Pro. It's based on policy verticals. The first three were energy, technology, healthcare. We've now got almost 20 of them. And to get this content, you can't find it typically on the main site at all. Some small percentage eventually creeps on there, but only a small percentage of. And to get it, you're going to pay thousands and thousands of dollars a year to get it, or in Europe, where we're also depending on this model, thousands and thousands of euros. And it's working. Once people sign up for Pro, it's hard work, first off, to get them to sign up, because the dollar sums you're talking about are large. Once they do, 90-95% re-enlistment rates, based on this notion of indispensability. The fact that this model has worked for us allowed us to really expand our horizons. Incidentally, this sort of illustrates the point of of intimacy that I'm talking about. That we're not just going for, we love the general reader. We love it on election nights, debate nights, big surges in our traffic. But it's the day in, day out intimacy with an influential audience that drives us. The Pro model has allowed us to grow. And right at the moment at Politico, we've got three major arenas of innovation. One is right in Washington, where our business success has allowed us to invest in journalism that stands, I believe, for excellence. And we're doing things that would have been well outside of our reach 5, 10 years ago when we got started. Politico was known at the beginning as kind of a run-and-gun publication. We were a little like Business Insider in that sense. Very quick, very scoopy, very good with the headline that would grab people and get stories to go viral. We still want to be good in those things, but we also have higher ambitions. As we've invested in the past couple of years in a magazine that is producing some of our highest traffic figures we've ever had, shows that there is an audience for quality, long-form journalism, if done right. And we also continue in Washington to invest in new policy areas. The other arena of innovation is at the states, where we're taking this Pro model that I've described and bringing it to different state capitals, which historically have been undercovered, and in particular are less and less covered in this era when so many traditional publishers are hurting and withdrawing resources. So we're moving in as they withdraw with an ambition over the next 4 years to reach all 50 state capitals. And then the final area, and this is by far the most important area of innovation, is in Europe. Ralph Bucchi, who you all know as a leader of this group, has part of the Axel Springer team that came to us a year ago, a little more than a year ago, about a year and a half, and said, we believe that there is a really promising opportunity for a publication like Politico, aimed at the political and policy-making space of European influentials. We were so impressed by Axel Springer's, both the quality of their executive leadership and the fact that even though their company was much different than ours, we still are a small kind of homegrown unit. They're a big corporation, one of the biggest publishers in Europe. We were very like-minded in how we saw the world, how we thought about journalism, how we thought about building business models that would sustain quality journalism. Matthias Döpfner, the CEO, we regarded as a real visionary. Ralph and his team have shown, and I think this is an important point, show that there's really no distinction, no meaningful distinction anymore between old and new media. At the beginning, when Politico was founded, we were seen as an example of new media innovation. I think the term is sort of meaningless right now. There are examples of old media publications. The New York Times is one, investing more in new ways of storytelling, in critical digital innovations. And I think the most ambitious new media properties are also thinking about how to defend and guarantee a future for first-class storytelling, which is the heart of journalism in any generation. I think Ralph is kind of an illustration of this. Very successful newspaper publisher, and also somebody who's helping Axel Springer lead the way in its digital media innovation. So the terms old and new are meaningless. I think to me the question is, are you embracing the future in an optimistic, forward-looking way, determined that there is an answer to this question of how do you monetize first-class content, or are you, as lamentably I see lots of publishers doing, certainly in the United States, kind of clinging desperately to an old business model, hoping to get the last few miles out of the jalopy before it collapses, out of gas on the side of the road. We're really, really happy with our Axel Springer partnership. Effectively, the publication that we're creating is doing all the things that we did in Washington. We are targeting an audience of policy professionals. We are trying to engage them with the front porch of first-class journalism, including long-form journalism that can be read by anybody and is gradually building a robust audience, and we're also connecting and making people pay a premium for the most sophisticated, most topical, we would say most indispensable of our journalism aimed at an insider crowd. So those twin pillars that were so important to what we're doing here in the United States, they're working in Europe. We're very excited about that. We've got, by coincidence, the publication there, about the same size as the publication we started with in the United States, a newsroom of about 40, another 25, 30 people on the business side. We see terrific opportunities for growth. Our Washington publication started from that size and it's grown. You might say it's metastasized to now about 400. We see more and more opportunities around Europe for us to grow, and we're actively exploring those opportunities. I would say the key to what we do here and there is by being very focused on who we are and what we do well. We're not trying to be all things to all people. We're not trying to cover every story that might somehow relate to politics. We're focused, again, I come back to that term, on an intimate relationship with our audience. We're aiming at people who do their professional work primarily in English and who have some real need, not just a casual interest, but a vital need for first-class quality journalism about the subjects that we cover. I just think that is, again, it's a different model than somebody who's just trying to build up a mass audience through whatever means. I think it's a more attractive model because the chase for traffic, it never ends. And somebody will always be buzzier, no matter how buzzy you are today, there's always a risk that somebody's buzzier than you tomorrow. I'm much more interested in sustained, long-term, enduring relationships in which editorial goals and business goals really are closely in sync. Just a couple of observations, then I would like to take some questions if there are any. One is about editorial quality. It's not just a luxury, I believe. It's not something that's subsidized by other parts of the business. We do this cheap stuff to get traffic or to somehow make the sale, and this is what we do over here to essentially soothe our conscience. I don't believe that is a successful formula long term. Editorial quality and business objectives, they've got to fundamentally merge, and I do think there are examples, Politico and many, many other places where that's the case. So I think there's reason for optimism about our business. That optimism doesn't mean that we're ever going to reach a point, and I think many of us had this. I know I used to. I used to believe, we're in for maybe a season of disruption, like an airplane going through some turbulence. Just relax, strap in, all will be well in another half hour or so. That's just not the case. I don't believe that we're ever going to return to an era of a settled status quo where we know for sure how to engage our audience. We know for sure the platforms in which they're going to be reading us on. We know for sure what our revenue streams are. I don't think that's ever going to happen. Nonstop disruption, that is our lot in life. Ultimately, if you believe in the journalism and believe that you have a corporate culture that can adapt to these changes in an ambitious, creative way, still a pretty good way to make a living. We're very happy with the success we've had. We're very happy with the way it's introducing us to fellow travelers in this business of marrying business success with editorial success. And I think in an era when everything is changing, business models, platforms, and all the rest are changing, it's worth reminding ourselves that fundamentally the reason we do this is for certain values that I think are unchanging. They're enduring. Belief in quality journalism, a belief in holding public officials accountable, a belief in storytelling that really connects with people and the way they live their lives. So anyway, that's what we're doing. We're proud of it. I'd love to love to answer any questions you have about our business or the business generally. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Great presentation. We will take a question from the audience. If there is one, just raise your hand. And while you pluck up, where is there one?
I think there's one
right over there. Great. Can we get the cube of power over there, please? Thank you.
Hi, thank you very much for your presentation. And I have a very practical question, if you don't mind.
It looks like a bomb. I'm sorry. What is that?
No, it's definitely not a bomb. It is a microphone, despite what it looks like.
No one will walk off with it that way, I see.
Over here, actually, very convenient. When you were thinking about, how to expand to Europe, how important was the question of choosing the language? British English versus American English. While you were doing your presentation, I checked your European website and I searched for color, the British spelling and the American spelling, and I actually found results for both. So, how important is that for you?
Well, it's obviously not that important, or we would be consistent in our spelling. It's supposed to be the U.S. spelling. We made a decision early on that we were going to stick with that style when it came to color, favorite, some of the other things. I will say that just as we are not, we don't cling to any single platform. We're happy for people to be reading us on their website at work, on their computer at work, on mobile, by email, what have you. Long term, we're not going to cling to the fact that anybody needs to be reading us in any particular language. When Axel Springer approached us about this partnership, it seemed obvious that our first target of opportunity, covering European policymaking mainly in Brussels, that's where our newsroom is, but also with editorial outposts in Berlin, in Paris, and in London, others on the way. But that we needed to do that in English. That was the main way professional work was getting done with our core audience. Long term, we are thinking, well, how do we, I mentioned intimacy, we want an intimate relationship with our audience always. I think that does lead us in the direction of long term we need to be reaching people, reaching our core audience in their native language. I'm sure there's many examples of this in this room, even people who are superbly fluent in English must regard it as, to some degree, a work to write and to read in English if it's not their native language. Above all, I think reading Politico should be both informative and fun. And it's hard for it to be fun if it's too much work to sort of do the simultaneous translation in your mind. We don't have that figured out yet, but I definitely think it's next on our agenda in Europe, is how to create editorial products in people's native language.
Okay, we might just fit one more in if we're relatively quick. If we can see one. Yes, just there. Oh, well thrown. Very accurate. Very good.
So, for just about everybody in the business, getting readers to pay for content on the web has been a vexing problem.
Yes.
So, as you were launching Politico Pro, not only you're getting people to pay, but you're getting to pay premium. Did you find that in order to justify that, did you have to establish different standards for the editors and the reporters in terms of the bar in which you place for the content, in order to justify the price point that you were asking your readers to pay?
Sure. And in doing so, we made a real distinction between the content that we're proud of and that we think will resonate with a larger audience. And at the moment, we have no plans really ever to charge people for that. As we looked at experiments with newspapers with sort of small-scale paywalls, it just doesn't seem worth the trade-off that what we would lose in traffic and revenue associated with that traffic. It's just not worth it. It's not worth it for us as a business, and it's certainly much less attractive to us as journalists to not have that content free. The content that we charge for, to be honest, the general interest audience isn't losing that much because this is so specialized. It's so aimed at a particular audience that the person who's sort of just casually interested in technology or energy issues probably isn't going to find this that useful, certainly not enough to pay $5,000, $10,000 for. for the people who make their livings in and around these issues, it's more than worth it. We know it's worth it because they pay once and then they gladly pay again, the resubscription rates. So I think your question is a good one. It does require both the editors and the reporters to kind of operate with different gears. And people are aware of whether this is a story that's going out there for the larger audience that comes to Politico.com or Politico.eu, or comes through us sideways through social media, whether they're writing for that audience or whether they're writing for the smaller but incredibly influential audience that's subscribing to these verticals. It just requires an awareness of sort of what the purpose is of a story.
Okay, that is all we've got time for, I'm afraid, but I'm sure John will be around for a few minutes afterwards if you want to
Thank you.
buttonhole him. Can I ask you please to thank John Harris? Thank you.
Thank you.